Welcome to Phil Jordan Psychic Sleuth. We are doing our 6th episode, and people are truly enjoying. We're getting questions, people asking all kinds of questions, and it's going well. I'm enjoying them.
Sounds good. What would you like to talk about tonight?
We've had a lot of inquiries about different types of readings and how people read, things like that. And I thought if we talked about the different types of reading, at some point we've had an inquiry about how people could develop their own psychic abilities. So I thought in a subsequent episode we could talk about that. But tonight, let's talk a little bit about the different types of readings. There are several different types of readings, and most of them, it is involving what the person mentally needs in order to start receiving their intuitive impressions. And you have to learn to either keep the conscious mind busy or bypass the conscious mind and go into the unconscious mind, because it's in the unconscious mind that psychic occurrences take place, that our intuitive experiences become realities, and so we have to learn to bypass that. There's such things as psychic readings. There are mediumship readings that people believe that the information comes from a spirit world, either spirit loved ones or guides, things of that nature. And some psychics possess mediumship qualities. Some mediums possess psychic qualities. But a pure mediumship reading from the spirit world, I think it's a combination where there is information coming from the spirit world, but I also think the psychic, the person doing the reading is saying it's all coming from the spirit world, so they don't have to take credit for what they're saying or what they're seeing or whatever. They can blame it on a dearly departed loved one, so to speak. And I think the psychic reading with mediumship thrown into it is probably the most intriguing and the most exciting reading. Another type of reading is a tarot reading using tarot cards. But I think with the tarot cards, each card has a significant meaning, which the tarot reader should have a working understanding or knowledge of what those cards mean. But it also, by looking at the tarot cards, they're keeping their conscious mind busy, so their unconscious mind can bring forth psychic impressions from within themselves. And so I think that's sort of a technique used to bring forth the person's psychic or intuitive abilities, plus actualizing some of the meaning from what the cards in what is called the arcana, what they have to say. But I think the tarot reader has to have some natural intuitive or psychic type ability as they read the cards. Then another type of reading is probably the oldest, and that's the astrological reading, where you have an astrological chart done according to time, place, and of your birth. And I think that that's very intriguing, and it's interesting how that has changed in my lifetime. When I was younger, to get a in-depth astrological reading, you'd have to go to an astrologer who would delve into books and information and knowledge and all kinds of things to come up with information about you according to the exact time, to the minute and date of your birth. And now, with the advent of technology, they don't have to spend that kind of time because it's all can be obtained through computer programming that has all that information stored. And an in-depth astrologer was truly a gifted person. I think we have to remember that astrology is the oldest science, and early civilizations relied on astrology a great deal because it not only would help them to be comfortable in the present, but would help them to know and understand a little bit about the future and opportunities and choices that they may have had. And so the astrological reading is intriguing to me. I'm not an in-depth astrologer, but I do have an understanding of the sun signs, the birth signs of a person, and what the characterization of that is. So I do in a reading like to know a person's birth month and the day of that month.
So, based on, so for me, an Aries, like, is there a generic template for an Aries?
Aries people, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. So Aries people tend to become an example. They lead the way because they're the first sign of the zodiac. They lead their own spirit through life, but they become an example for others to follow. They move fast. I always say an Aries person has fast forward. They don't have neutral. They don't have reverse. And I think the Aries person is precise in their movement. Even though they're fast at what they do, they get everything accomplished perhaps quicker than others and perhaps a bit more precise. So a very good sign. Now I'm an Aquarian, and Aquarian people, they sort of, nothing matters till it really matters. And then when it matters, we let the world know that it matters, you know? And so that's intriguing because it fits me quite well. I enjoy the mediumship where the reader or the medium is in communication with the spirit world. But like I said, sometimes they throw their own information in from a psychic standpoint. But I've had mediumship readings that have been so uncanny that it's unbelievable. I lived all my life near a spiritualist camp. Spiritualism was sort of founded by the Fox sisters in the mid-1800s, and they would have seances and supposedly communicate, and there is some belief that they were genuine, but also that they may have resorted to some fraudulent things because they became so popular that they had to continuously put out their work. And so there are some incidences where they think they could have been fraudulent in some of the things they did, but it started a Christian movement that we believe that we live after the change called death, and we're still connected to our loved ones by love, and they're concerned for us, and they have perhaps a little bit more knowledge than we do because they've been through life, and so they can convey information to us that can be helpful. In any reading that you have, remember that your own free will and the course of life's events can alter the course of a reading. The things you are told don't necessarily aren't necessarily carved in granite. It's for you to perhaps know and understand your own spirit and the opportunities that it will have. But a lot of the readings that I had as a younger person with mediums in the spiritualist community were just absolutely uncanny. One of the most prominent readings that I had, I was about, I would say 17 years old probably, and I went to this elderly woman who was a medium at the spiritualist camp, which again is a Christian community, and their declaration of principles is amazing because it fits life so perfectly. I think one of their principles, I can't remember, I think it's the third one, but it's man makes his own happiness or unhappiness as he obeys or disobeys nature's physical and spiritual laws. And that is so profound for me, especially in my pursuit of faith, in my pursuit of life. I mean, we make our own unhappiness. If we overeat, we're going to have indigestion, you know, and that's a physical thing that has created unhappiness. If we're jealous, an emotion that takes us to unhappiness. And so we make our own happiness or unhappiness as we obey or disobey nature's physical and spiritual laws. And so I just find that very fascinating. I went to a reading, like I said, when I was about 17, and I sat in a chair, and the woman reading me just sat across from me. And she said, I have a man in spirit by the name of William Henry. And he says he's your grandfather. And just as she said that, there was a full-size mirror on the wall behind me, and it started swinging back and forth. Nobody was near it. I could tell there was nothing attached to it to make it swing back and forth. And she says, that's his energy that's attached to the mirror. And he's just letting us know he's there. And she says, he wants you to know that he went to Georgia, and from Georgia he went to South America where he died. She said, I smell fresh cut wood, so he must have worked around wood somehow. And a medium is uses all the senses, so she smelled fresh wood. So I didn't know anything. I knew I had a grandfather by the name of William. I never knew any of my grandparents. My parents were married later in life, and we were all sort of change-of-life babies, and I didn't know anything about my grandparents. So I thought I never had heard anything about a grandfather going to South America and dying. So I went home, and my mother says, well, how'd your reading go? And I says, well, I think it was pretty bogus. I said, she told me that my grandfather named William Henry, and that he went to Georgia, and then he went on to South America where he died. And my mother says, we always wondered what happened to Grandpa. And it was actually my great-grandfather and her grandfather. His name, oddly enough, was William Henry. And she said the last that anyone saw of him, he and his wife had a terrible fight, and he was in a canoe headed down the Susquehanna River, and she was throwing stones at him. And so we chuckled over that, because that could easily have happened in anywhere in the family. But she said grandmother, her mother, had gotten a letter from him saying that it was a long time after he left, saying that he was working in the logging industry and that he was in Georgia and that he was shipping out the next day to South America to work in the logging industry. And they never heard from him again after that. So I assume he, like the medium says, went to South America and died. And it's those things with mediumship that prove to me that we do live after the change called death. A lot of people think that, oh, it's just coming from our memory banks or anything like that. I had never heard that story. I didn't know his name, his full name, William Henry. And it had to be him communicating to me what was happening. And so, and I have countless stories like that prove to me mediumship. However, there are some mediums who have made a living out of being a medium, which is good, but they will speak in generalities. And I think the proof is in the pudding if they speak of something very trivial that only you know about and nobody else knows about. In any reading, you should not let people pull questions or pull answers out of you with their questions. When I do a reading, I ask for the birth month and day of the person. I read their aura. I give them a health reading, unless it's over the phone, and then I'll just do a health reading through the phone. I don't have to see their aura. But then I tell them things that I see. And I very seldom ask questions because people that are not real positive in their readings will try to get you to give answers that they can turn around and give it back to you, and you think, well, how'd they know that? Well, they knew that because you already basically gave them the answer. So don't go to somebody if they're pumping you for questions, whether it's in person or these telepsychics on the phone or in the computers. Don't give them information. Don't test them. Just let the proof be in what they tell you in the reading. And sometimes it'll be very, very accurate and very detailed, very precise. And sometimes maybe not so because it might not be coming through. A lot of times in mediumship, when I hear a spirit talking, it's like a whisper. It's just very soft. And then sometimes it's very loud, very profound. Sometimes I see the spirit, they're transparent sometimes, and sometimes they look just like you do sitting here. And so the mediumship reading, everyone's intrigued by that because we don't want to think that our loved ones are dead. We want to think they're still alive and surrounding us with their love. So I think most readers that are psychic mediums, they rely on their psychic self as well as knowing and understanding mediumship and the spiritual part of life as well. Where the tarot readings, they focus on the arcana of the cards, keeping their conscious mind busy, where their unconscious mind can bring forth the information. So it's really quite fascinating. And then the astrological is a little bit even more detailed as far as that goes. When I get to the episode where we're going to talk about how to develop your own psychic self, I think that everybody has psychic experiences. Everyone has an intuitive aspect, as I've said before. We have instinct, we have intuition, and we have psychic availability. It's just learning to know and understand our own spirit and our responses to the information that we're getting. And I tell everyone it's the difficult part, Everyone tells you when you're developing your psychic abilities, you got to concentrate. No, that's just the wrong thing. You have to clear your mind. You have to try to visualize nothingness. Visualize, I tell people, you're looking at a white wall. You're not seeing anything. And keep your mind focused on that white wall, and then listen to what your heart tells you. If later on in the reading people have questions, and they might ask, what do you feel about a job? And I may say, well, I feel you're applying for a new job, and I feel a little bit uneasy in my heart, and that tells me that you're probably not going to get that job. Or I feel wonderful about that, and you're probably going to get that job. And then I will explore it a little deeper within to try to find out when it's going to be, what it's going to be, who's going to be involved, things of that nature. So
when you do a normal reading or one of your standard readings, could it be a combination of both psychic and medium, depending on if somebody comes to
absolutely,
you?
Absolutely. But I tell people, the mediumship has to happen. I can't make that happen. I don't have a universal phone directory where it can dial up every spirit in heaven. If they have information or just want to send their love to somebody, I'll either see them or hear them or give the person I'm reading for information where they know that that person's presence is with them. So that's sort of the way that is.
And you've performed like all four of those kinds, right?
Well, I'm not real deep into astrology, as I said. I did years ago work a little bit with tarot cards, but I realized I didn't need that crutch, so to speak, and I could just read a person's aura, and by focusing on their aura, that's keeping my conscious mind busy, so then the unconscious mind can bring forth the information.
One thing I was thinking of that I guess dabbled in years and years ago was biorhythms. Do biorhythms kind of go with the astrology piece, or is it a totally separate deal?
Biorhythms, wow, that's 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Biorhythms are a thing where they had actually machines that could register your biorhythms. And I'm not sure that I really got into a deep belief with that, but it will tell you when you're perhaps psychically more in tune or biologically down or biologically up or whatever. So the biorhythms work with the supposedly with the brain waves of the mind, and I think that people tried to develop their psychic abilities through the ups and downs of their biorhythms. And I think you just need to know yourself. Once you know your own spirit, then the rest of it comes along fairly easy. So it's fascinating. Years ago, I was asked to lecture to a group of 5th graders. And it was in a town, probably, I would say an hour and a half away from where I am, so I didn't know anybody or anything. No one knew me. So I showed the kids how to sort of tune in. And I gave them an experiment, and I took my sheriff's deputy badge, wrapped it in a small box in brown paper, and then taped it up with duct tape. And after I taught them for a while, I said, I want you to draw a picture of what you think is in the box. And I think 3 out of probably 20 kids drew a star. one kid drew a police car, and so that showed me they were in tune. And I think younger children are very intuitive as they come into the world. I mean, they've been a renewed spirit, renewed in a body. And so they haven't been tainted by society. They haven't been tainted by saying, well, that don't exist, this does exist, whatever. And so that's why I think a lot of younger kids under the age of 5, they may have an imaginary playmate. And it may actually be a spirit or their spirit guide. And that may sound foolish, but they suddenly lose it at the age of 5. They're no longer have the playmate. It's because they go to school and they're told that doesn't exist. When for them, it really does exist. And so I think that is that's something that we should really become more aware of. I always say, if your child is telling you something they feel or something they've dreamt, question them a little bit with that. Like, what else did you see? Did they say anything? What were they wearing? Things of that nature. Because I think they're probably actually on the threshold of developing their own psychic self, and you can help them along with that. So I think that's very positive to do.
Very cool.
So I think the other thing with readings, and I mentioned it before, there's a lot of charlatans in psychic phenomenon, in mediumship, where they think if they've told you something really, really bad that you've had a good reading, it scared you to death, you've had a good reading. Or if they ask you to come back and bring more money and they can get rid of a bad spirit or a curse or whatever, don't go along with that. That's phoniness, that's a fraudulent thing, and they're making money and you're getting scared, and you're just being brought into more negativity. But yet, for me, my psychic self has prepared me for so many things in my life by knowing ahead of time something that might happen. And, all the time I'm saying, well, I see this happening, so I have to be prepared, or I have to overcome this, or I have to have my faith kick in and help me through this, whatever. But I think forewarned is forearmed, and so I like to know. And again, my own free will in the course of life's events can certainly alter the course of what I'm seeing. If I'm seeing a trip to California and suddenly the plane can't take off because of mechanical failure and I miss my flight to California and it doesn't turn out the way I thought it was, it's free will. The course of life's events has changed it. So you got to be open to that. You cannot let, in this life, your journey is your journey. You can't let a psychic, a medium, or anybody control your life, even astrologically. If you're told in an astrological chart, those are things that are going to cross your path, but it doesn't mean it's going to be exactly the way it was interpreted through the astrologer. Often, not so reputable readers will say to a person, "Oh, I feel your death is going to happen when you're in your 62nd year." It may not be the death of that person. It may be the retirement of their job, or the death of their job, or the death of a marriage. It may be some other type of death rather than physical death of that person. So I think just be cautious when you get readings. Be cautious of how you do it, because people will take advantage of you, because money has become, the love of money is the root of all evil, as we are told.
When you were talking about how psychically, what you see helps you prepare, or warnings and things like that. I was thinking about when you were had the heart issues. I don't know if you've told that before or not, but
I was 52 years old. My nephew had gotten married. We were at the reception, and I had danced with my sister, felt pain in my back under the shoulder blade on the right, and fortunately I was able to read auras. And so I danced with my sister, and then my niece wanted me to dance, and I couldn't catch my breath, and I was sweating, but I always sweat. So I went outdoors. It was late October. I went outdoors to get a breath of fresh air, and the pain didn't leave. The shortness of breath didn't leave. So I went in the bathroom, and I looked at my aura, and it was all gray and red around the heart. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm having a heart attack. So I got my niece to, I said to her, I think I have to go to the hospital. Let's go out this side door. She says, don't you feel good? And I says, I think I'm having a heart attack. Well, we got to the hospital, and it was within an hour of the pain. And so they gave me what they call golden shot, and I didn't have any heart damage. Since that time, I've had 9 stents and triple bypass. But because I was able to know what was happening, I averted probable death, because I probably would have gone, had a shot and a beer and kept dancing. Except at that time, I had not drank for 22 years. So that was interesting. Yeah, I do listen to my psychic self. I try not to overcome it, but I don't let it rule my life either. And I don't want my readings to rule anybody else's life. You have to be objective. You have to say, well, this could happen, but it might not, or you have the ability to change it. So.
all sounds very interesting, of course. Do you want to go into some of the questions that people sent in, or do you want to elaborate some more on?
Yeah, let's do that. There's one here from the British Isles, I believe it is, from Homer. He's asking about that he is asking about his own psychic abilities. So stay tuned. In the future, we're going to talk about developing your own psychic ability. And he's also talked about depression and how he's been good with it, and then it goes back into a deep depression. And he's got a medication that is helping him right now, but he has fears of going back. I don't see that happening for him for 2 reasons. I think he's found a medication that will keep him away from the depression, but I also think he's explored his own spirit enough that he doesn't get drawn into it psychologically, because I think the depression is a chemical, a body chemistry thing that initiates the depression. Again, I'm not a doctor, so always stay in tune with your physicians. But I really think that the medicine is helping him to not initiate that depression, and his psychological self, and knowing and understanding his own spirit, I think will keep him away from that depression. So I think I don't feel there's a negative energy or an entity or bad spirit around him or a curse placed on him. I feel as though it's something that is part of his human journey that he's overcoming through his own spiritual self with the help of medications. So I think that's good. I'll keep Homer in my prayers.
All right. We have another one from Barbara. She says, I have a man that I've seen 3 times. First and second time, he was next to me in bed. The third time I told him to leave. How does this man relate to me?
Okay, she's talking about a spiritual entity that she senses. First of all, it's happening while she's in a sleep state. She's in bed, she's either slept or going to sleep, coming in or out of sleep. And as we travel into sleep, we go through the alpha theta phase of the mind. As we're coming out, we go through the theta alpha to beta phase of the mind. And so her mind is through the resting of the psychological self, the conscious self, that is resting so her unconscious mind can be sensitive to spirits around her, to psychic things occurring around her, and things like that. So I think that it's a spirit that is possibly a guide to her. I don't think from what you've read that I don't think she's fearful of it. So it's either a spirit loved one, someone that was attached to the house or the property at one time, or a guide to her. And I almost think that it's a spirit loved one, and I think that it might be somebody 2 generations older than her, perhaps on the mother's side of the house, perhaps a maternal grandfather. But I also think she has a guide with her that is a Native American man, which is a very good guide to have because they live their life in this world spiritually in preparation for the next. And so they're a very good guide to have. So I think it's a combination of a spirit guide and perhaps a maternal grandfather.
I have one more. I don't know if it's too long to read.
Oh yes, right. This is from
Victor.
From Victor. He's talking about his employments, and he says he's applied for a couple thousand jobs and only had 4 interviews. No further process of hiring in the end. He's applied in multiple fields and every type of job you could imagine, from librarian, construction, hotel jobs, restaurants, things like that. This will seem odd to, I'm sure this will seem odd to Victor, but as I read that, I suddenly felt like I was at an airport. And I didn't feel a real huge airport, but I felt like it was an airport. And I felt like he may have a job opportunity that will come up in air travel somehow, probably at an airport, but it might be not on the planes. I don't see him traveling in the air, but I feel like he might have a job connected with an airport, with maybe dealing with people or in some other aspect. I don't see him being a pilot or a steward or anything like that. But I feel like that may be an opportunity that may come his way, and it would seem to be something that would be positive for him. At some point in his career path, there will be a woman who will be a superior to him, or a supervisor or boss to him, and her name will be Beverly. And I think that that will be a very positive situation. I think the next 3 or 4 months may still be a little bit frustrating. But I think he will have 3 different opportunities for employment. And the first 2, the third one I don't think will be considered. The first 2 might even offer him an opportunity there. Something seems significant around September. So hopefully he'll be gainfully employed in September and can let us know.
All right, very good. Thank you. I think that is about it for this episode.
Well, we've covered various topics, but I hope I've helped people to know to get a positive or helpful reading. I always tell people, don't get a reading when you're desperate. Like if you've had a break in a relationship or been fired from a job or lost a job. get a reading when it's comfortable so you can see the opportunities that may come in your life. Desperation creates issues, I think. I think of my father who always said, only panicked people drown. If you would just go with the current or go with the flow and not let something knock you out or whatever, that eventually all moving water will go to a lagoon or calm waters and you can be saved. And it's the same in life. Don't allow panic to put you in a wrong place. Be spiritual. Understand your own spirit in life, and it's just a lot easier. And that's where, for me, my faith has come in. So.
Very good. Well, thank you for all your time. Don't forget, if you have questions, send them to philjordanpsychic@gmail.com. And you can always go to the website, philjordan.com, for further information.
philjordan.com. I do readings from all over the world by phone. I do readings at my office in Camden, New York, and I can do consultations through the mail as well, where I'll sit and do a reading on you and send it on a CD. All that information is on my website. My new book is going well, A Winter's Journey. It's a wonderful, short, spiritual novel, and that is great. And I'm enjoying life still.
Yeah, very good. Well, thank you, and until next time.
Yes, and hopefully in the future, I'm going to work on development of your psychic self, but I also am going to have a massage therapist in, who I think is a very gifted person, who we will talk about healing, and he'll be a part of that. And then we're going to also have a woman in that's a Reiki master. Excuse me. And she's very gifted. And I think Reiki might be a misunderstood sort of genre of the work. But I think she can certainly explain it. And we can talk about shamanism and things like that. So till the next time, thank you. May God bless.
Alrighty, thank you.